Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Respecting the Beer. This week, we're continuing our conversation with Vinnie Cilurzo of Russian River Brewing Company. That's right, Pliny, the Elder, the Younger, and everything else in between. Let's just jump right back in.
So we can't go too far before we talk about your sour beer program. You're a wine guy originally, and that has to have something to do with how this came to be.
Yeah. That trip I mentioned to Belgium in 1999, I was 19 years old. I remember going to Cantillon on that trip and doing a walking tour through the brewery there, which if you've never been, it's one of the most amazing breweries in the world that I've been to. It's truly a museum, and the brew house runs on one motor. And then they've got these belts and pulleys that crisscross each other, and they've just got a rubber mallet, and they can knock the belts from one set of pulleys to the other to drive other gears that do this or that. It's pretty spectacular. And
OSHA approved, I'm sure.
I've always been a big fan of Brettanomyces, the yeast that is a part of the lambic process, and we use it in all of our wild, funky beers. But I do have this connection to barrels and taking care of them, and so I think there is a connection there. It's ironic that one of the reasons I liked homebrewing was that it got me into making beer that took 14, 21 days, maybe a month, and it got me away from winemaking that was, year, 2 years to make a product. And now, it comes full circle that we're doing all these wild, funky beers that sometimes take up to 3 years to make. But it's also the connection we have. We're in the middle of wine country. So Sonoma County, where we're at, has, several hundred wineries. Over the hill is Napa, more famous than Sonoma, but more known for auto parts. We're known for wine and beer, of course. But all kidding aside, so we do have literally hundreds of wineries. So sourcing barrels is super easy for us, and they're a big part of the whole program. And so we have a whole line of beers where the beer matches the specific barrel, whether it's a Pinot Noir barrel or a Cabernet barrel, and the recipes are built around it. They all have Brettanomyces. Most of them have bacteria, so good bacteria like Lactobacillus, Pediococcus, which, for Lactobacillus, you find that in yogurt, kimchi, so on and so forth. It's in, kombucha. It's in a lot of products that people eat, consume, whether it's a beverage or a food. And and we also spontaneously ferment, so we have a cool ship as well, and that's more of that lambic style that we call Sonambic. So it's Sonoma and lambic contracted together,
which is a beautiful name.
Yeah.
We were trying to come up with a name as good as that for our region.
But yeah, it's so. To answer your question, yeah, it's a little bit back to my winemaking background, as much as our love for wine, that higher acidity, the creativeness that comes with it, that really there is no styles if you don't want there to be. There can be, but there doesn't have to be. And it's also, especially with the spontaneous beers, it's Mother Nature is really driving where the flavor profile goes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you bring up Cantillon, because I believe we've told this story about how we had a friend who had Cantillon bottles that we were like, oh, let's not clean those out, and let's build that up a little bit.
Let's propagate those dregs.
Yeah.
So our own sour program has
12 years.
12 years?
Yeah. We have, I would say, I think we're 36 or 40 casks total.
That's amazing. That's cool. Yeah. No, it's something you can do anywhere. And it doesn't, have to be super elaborate. And at one point, that represented 10% of our volume sales every year. Once we built the big Windsor facility, that number dropped significantly. But and at a time, maybe probably a couple years pre-COVID, it seemed like everybody in California was making a wild, funky barrel-aged beer, and it got to the point where everyone was just diluting themselves in the market. And there was a lot of bad, wild, sour beer out there, where a lot of acetic acid being the balsamic vinegar compound, which is not good. You want really clean, crisp acidity. You don't want balsamic vinegar.
And Dan Carey talks a lot about that too. He has philosophies on that too.
Absolutely, yeah. Dan and I are very much aligned there, and I hate to say it, but the fact is that it's been better for those of us that are still in it, because everything out there, at least in California, is that, for breweries that are making these beers, are super clean and really nice, acidity and great flavor profile. But it also has meant that sales have gone up for us. So we're actually now adding more barrels, and we have everything's more draft driven now than bottles, because I think a lot of people that were really are into these beers still have like massive cellars. But that's okay, because we're available mostly statewide through California. So if an account wants a true barrel aged, funky wild sour beer, we have them available, and we have them rotating around from one variety to the other.
Always at the Coronado as well.
And sure. We have a whole line that uses grapes. We're in wine country, so we do one every year with Sauvignon Blanc. We've done one with Petit Syrah, with Merlot, with Syrah, Cabernet, so on and so forth. It's a really fun program to have, and it's just, when Natalie and I talk about our business model, it's been diversified the whole time, whether it's like truly how we distribute through we used to be one pub, now 2 restaurants. We've always had distribution. We run self-distribution locally, so we have 500 accounts that we deliver to in the Bay Area and Napa and Sonoma and Marin. So that, from a business standpoint, we're super diversified. And then from a portfolio standpoint, yes, it's mostly Pliny the Elder with an IPA, but now, we were talking about lagers before, specifically STS, and our 2 lagers now represent 15% of our total volume production, and that was virtually at zero when we opened the Windsor facility in 2018. So that's gotten to that point. We have the sour, wild, funky beers, and then we've also have a little 5-barrel pilot brewery that I run myself, and so we've got all kinds of experiments going that then trickle down into the actual, production beers. And we rarely create new recipes in there. It's more like brewing different practices or concepts, or trialing something that will eventually work its way into a beer. And a good example is there's a new hop from Seagull Ranch called Tangier. And right now we're the largest purchaser of Tangier, and that's now in Blind Pig and Pliny, and that started out just in the pilot brewery a couple years ago. And Tangier is this amazing orange focus quality. Like if you want orange in your flavor aroma in your beer, Tangier is the hop. And Pliny has always been built on pine from the Simcoe, stone fruit from the Amarillo hops, and then the citrus component came a little bit from Simcoe, but it was always a hodgepodge of other hops, and we could never get it super consistent. And I can still remember the first time being out in the field at Seagull Ranch with John Siegel and the ranch manager, Martin Ramos, and rubbing Tangier and going, oh my God, this is just straight up orange. It's like cutting into an orange in that split second when the oil sprays out and you smell it. That's Tangier. And John goes, that's exactly what I told Martin. and I said to John, this is the hop I've been looking for forever, because it helped clean up the hop bill in Pliny the Elder. I was always blending multiple hops to try to get this clean orange citrusy kind of quality, and then here comes this hop that they bred, and it's like, this is it. So
did they know? So it's chicken and egg now. Did they know that you were seeking this type of punchy citrus flavor, or was it by happenstance?
Yeah, it was just by happenstance.
How lovely.
And I think that is where people like Martin or Jason Peralt, who's one of the 2 breeders for the hop breeding company, which is Yakima Chief and Haas together, or Dr. Ron Beatson from New Zealand. These guys are the real legends of the IPA movement, because I'm sure you guys know this, but maybe your listeners don't, that it takes at minimum 8 to 10 years to get a hop from its first, time when it's been bred to it being commercially released. And so when you think about Simcoe being released 25 years ago, so in the late 90s or whenever it was, they had bred it 10 years, started breeding it 10 years before that. Nobody was making an IPA at that point. There was no use for it. Granted, it was supposed to be a bittering hop, but still, Citra was, I believe, originally bred by the request of Miller, and it just hung out in the field. And then eventually a couple breweries, both West Coast here and some from your area, were like looking for something that was like that. And they were like, oh, we have this hop that's been hanging out here.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah. Mosaic is Simcoe's daughter. So without Simcoe, Mosaic doesn't even exist. But it shows you like how important the hop breeders are. These people are the backbone of the IPA movement, and they never get their due credit, but they deserve a lot of credit for the IPA movement, and even for the flavors that we can create in beer from sometimes a pretty small amount of hops, like New Zealand hops. So that's why I love New Zealand hops. We just started making commercially for distribution West Coast Pils. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that style. It was first brewed by a little brewery in Southern California, Highland Park. Bob Kuntz, the co-owner, with his wife. It's basically it's a Pilsner, but hopped like an IPA. So fermented cold, so lower alcohol body of a Pilsner, but hopped like an IPA. We've been brewing it in the pilot brewery and then at our Santa Rosa pub last year, and did our first big distribution release about a month ago. And it's lower alcohol, so Tangier is the main hop in it, but we're supporting it with New Zealand hops because New Zealand hops tend to have a big polyphenol like kick to it, which gives you mouthfeel and body, just like it would in wine. And New Zealand hops are great like that. It doesn't take a lot of them to make that fullness.
How does that relate to a cold IPA in your mind?
To me, a cold IPA would have a full adjunct load. So you would use rice or maybe corn, I guess. The better ones I've had use rice, whereas West Coast Pils is 100% malt, and both would be fermented cold. But I think your West Coast Pils, you're going to get a little bit of the nuanced qualities that you would get of the fermentation profile from a true Pilsner that's not using IPA hops, and then with the West Coast Pils, you're using IPA hops. So, ours is called Russian River 110. It references the length of the Russian River in miles from start to finish, 110 miles. But I'm loving the style because it's 5.2% alcohol, at least ours is. And, as you get older, you can't drink as much, but you still want the big hop load. And I would love to see West Coast Pils get brewed more. Would love to see we're 50,000 barrels. We're not a small brewery anymore. But I would love to see someone even bigger take it nationally just to get it out there and get people educated by it. But we're fully committed to the style and are going to do probably 6 releases a year of Russian River 110. And we've turned it into a fundraiser beer. So a portion of the proceeds from the beer will go to a local nonprofit, the Russian River Keeper, and that's who keeps the Russian River clean. And that's our water source here in Sonoma County. So it's an important organization, and we thought it was the right thing to do to support them with this beer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll do our part. We brew a ton of West Coast styles.
We'll
do our part to bring that to the Midwest best we can. We think we make some of the best West Coast around. We have quite a following around here. It's not like we're competing against all of the breweries that you guys compete against, but still out here, we do our best.
It's the beauty of the beer industry is that high tide floats all boat, and everyone shares information. Especially now as there is some people will tell you the industry's a little bit shaky, but now's more time than ever that we all need to support each other and get people in drinking beer and whatnot.
Okay, I'm going to have to lead you into this Windsor story. This is the culmination of your life's work. You and Natalie both. I want to hear about this. I haven't been able to make it there. I know you mentioned a cool ship, and you talked open fermentation. This is like everything that you've been talking about this hour. You've been talking about your IPAs and your lagers and your sour program.
Yeah, the idea of building what we affectionately call our dream brewery was something that I'm not sure you always in the back of your mind, like, yeah, I want to build a brewery like Sierra Nevada for you guys in your area to be like New Glarus, just this like pinnacle place. And both of those breweries were incredibly inspirational for Natalie and I. But you don't know that you can ever get there. It's like the average person being able to build their own home from scratch. That's the best way that I can describe it, in the sense that you know, let's say are lucky enough to, you know, have a blank piece of land and you can build the house. And if you're into cooking, you have your dream kitchen with whatever kind of stove and the layout, and maybe you want an island or whatever it is. And most people don't get to do that. And so we've been very fortunate to be able to do this. But there was one thing that we had ultimately decided on, and we weren't going to do it while we still had investors. And so I think it was about 2014 when we bought out 20 of our 25 investors. And then a couple years later, we were able to buy out the remaining 5. During that period, we started designing a brewery. And, you know, thankfully we had this beer, Pliny the Elder, that was selling. We were selling an awful lot of it just through our brew pub. People were lined up to buy it by the case. And so it helped fund the brewery, buy out our investors, and fund this, you know, our dream brewery. And it was an amazing process. I'll never want to do it again. You know, I remember after Sierra Nevada built Mills River, Ken said to me, "If I ever say I'm going to do this again, don't let me do it. Just
That's fair.
Kill me, take me out." And they did this. What was it, like 80,000, 90,000 square foot expansion a few years ago in Chico. And I said, "Well, Ken, you did it again." And he goes, "No, I didn't put a brew house in, so it doesn't count." So, but yeah, so the process was longer in design than it was in actual construction. Construction was only 18 months for an 85,000 square foot building.
Wow.
But yeah, everything from a German brew house, fully automated, to 6 open top fermenters, to a full yeast propagation system automated, a slew of cylindrical, so cone bottom tanks. It's technically an outdoor tank system that we put indoors, so there's a whole catwalk system on them so we can dry hop from the top. And then packaging hall. At the time when we built it, we weren't canning yet, and we still mostly bottle, but we do can some of our beers. And then the full funky sour wild brewery, which we've since downsized into just what is the barrel room. And then that other portion that was the funky cellar has now become what we call lager house. And so we've got all the lagering tanks in there, and we are a can line in there, and we can make ales in there, of course, but we mostly do lagers. Yeah, it's kind of the culmination of all of Natalie and, you know, mine's years work. It's also a bit of our retirement, if you will. You know, someday we're going to have to figure out what the next step is, and so there's all kinds of expansion capability built into it. But in the meantime, we're really happy where we're at, and we're back to our 2-3% growth a year, and that's always been our mindset and mantra. And, you know, we always think about what's the purpose of the decision? Like, do you just add a tank to make more beer? Well, in the world of IPA, and you're distributing like we are, that's just more stress, you know, to stress about, is the beer fresh? Is the bartender cleaning the lines? Blah, blah, blah. So, you know, we're really happy with the volume of beer we make, and it's more than I ever thought we would make. But it's also, you know, pretty crazy to look at the building and see the size of it, and look at the operation, and just are like, wow, look what it's become. So all from home brewing.
Yeah. Well, we're a ship in a bottle here, because we're at just over 1,000 barrels a year.
We're
little.
We contract up to 1,400, and we're looking for our next steps. And
nice.
But we're a ship in a bottle, and it's a shout out to our neighbors. Appleton Beer Factory is actually the brewery next door to us, and they house our joint sour beer program, because they have this huge basement, which we don't have. But it's like those tiny house shows where you can't imagine people living in these little spaces. That's like when I go to other breweries or hearing about yours, like what are the feelings of just like I actually have space to do stuff
Yeah.
now, because your other breweries are pretty small.
Yeah, it did. They were, but with that comes a giant loan payment because we've done this on cash flow and
trade-off.
and debt. We don't have any investors. We don't have private equity. We don't have a multinational brewery behind us, multi-international brewery behind us. Nothing. Not there's anything wrong with that. It's just how it is. We're kind of fiercely independent in that sense, and I still remember those small, when we were 1,000 barrels or a couple thousand barrels, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that's one of the things, and Natalie and I talk about this all the time, that we believe has kind of clouded the industry. In America, it's always like, you got to grow, grow or die. I remember being at the CBC one year, a larger craft brewery owner said that, and that just isn't the case. I mean, we're amongst hundreds of wineries who a winery is 10,000 cases or 5,000 cases, and they figure it out, every year. And that ethnic restaurant on the corner, whether it's a Chinese restaurant or Mexican food or whatever it is, local restaurant, but it doesn't have to be ethnic. It's just a family running the business, and that's it. It doesn't everyone doesn't have to grow. And so, when you see the Brewers Association numbers and it says 50% of the breweries are growing and 50% aren't, it's like, yeah, but how many of those that aren't are just flat? And that's okay.
Right, they're maintaining.
They're maintaining. And, there's all kinds of ways to be efficient, both small and big. I mean, it's easier to find those efficiencies, I think, when you're big. Like, we just put in a second baler, one for plastic and one for cardboard. And it's going to save us $24,000 a year in trash recycle pickup fees, and the whole thing cost us like $12,000, which is a lot of money. But when the ROI is 6 months, it's like, this is amazing, and that's going to be in perpetuity. So you can find ways to save money, or like our production manager finding a new box company that, a box is a box as long as the flaps close and the print looks good. Like, it's not like hops or something where maybe the quality it could be one way or the other, which obviously we would never compromise there. But there's so many places that small businesses can find ways to save money, which then go to the bottom line and become profitability, and those become the raises you give your employees or you take home, whatever it is. So,
and this kind of, you walked right into one of my bigger questions I wanted to ask you, and it's about Windsor. And I meant to ask Ken Grossman about the Mills River Brewery. I meant to ask him this and I forgot to. And so I thought, when I have this interview, I'm going to ask Vinnie, did you open Windsor because you needed to or because you wanted to?
It's both.
Okay.
And I can answer that for Ken because I know him well enough that they kind of needed to. I remember having a conversation with their then director of finance, Bill Bales, and there was like the inertia of the ball was rolling, and like they were at capacity in Chico, and they had to open it. Like, when you're that big, their distributors are like kind of demanding it. For us, it was both. I remember this moment with Ken where I was telling them we were going to build our dream brewery and what it was going to be, and we were debt free at that point. And I remember Ken asking me, he goes, "You sure you want to do this?" And he goes, "Why?" And I said, "Because I want a brewery that we can be proud of." Like, before we were just in this, our old production brewery was in this tired building, and, it just was kind of, it was okay, but it wasn't like pristine and what we wanted, and our what we searched and seeked for quality required this brewery. And he never asked me that again. And, Ken was a huge part of helping us with, design and that sort of thing, which was really great. But so it was a little bit of both. And then we designed in certain things that we couldn't afford at the time. And that was something that Dan Carey had said to me at some point during the design phase. He's like, "Look, if you have something that you want to design in, but you can't maybe afford it, bring over the old piece of equipment, but design the space for the new piece." And we did that with our keg racker. We wanted to do CO2 recovery, couldn't afford it. Plus we were in a CO2 contract, but we just got out of the contract and fired that up this past July. So we're now 100% off the grid with CO2, and we're capturing all of our CO2 and you reuse it. And we have so much CO2 that we send it to Santa Rosa as well, and that runs 100% on our own CO2. So we no longer purchase CO2. So then there's like that sustainability piece. All the wastewater in Windsor gets captured and then runs through a whole cleaning process, and then that water goes through at a point where typically you would discharge it back to the municipality. That goes through a multi-step filtration process, and then that water comes back in the building, and that's our cleaning CIP water for the brewery. So all of our brewery water is reclaimed, and we get to buy water, non-potable water, at a discount from the municipality, from the town of Windsor, and that's all the water that landscapes, that waters the landscape. And a bill just got passed in California that hopefully will actually clear the true legislation of it in the next year or so, and we'll be able to run all of our toilets on that recycled water, what's called purple pipe water. And so we double plumbed all the restrooms to be able to run on recycled water, non-potable water that we can buy at a discount, which ultimately is saving water because now we're not using domestic water. And and those are things that we couldn't do on a smaller scale, but on a larger scale, you can start to realize some of these sustainability, practices and initiatives. And it's not the end all. And, every brewery does a little bit of some sort of environmental sustainability recycling, with the fact that your spent grain goes to a farmer probably. Most breweries' heat exchanger where they cool the wort, the unfermented beer, is room temperature water flowing one way or cold liquor water flowing one way. They exchange their heat, and now you've just saved all that energy. So there's a lot of sustainability that happens even in the smallest brewery.
So I'm going to be listening to this recording myself many times over and playing it for my wife, Allison, as we plan or don't plan our expansion.
I was about to say, I appreciate the inspiration of the beers, but now I'm looking over at him going, we are not building another building. But I appreciate, though, the when we built our building, we planned to put a cool ship up on the top. And I don't remember how big it's going to be.
Just a 10 heck.
But when we had the whole place gutted, we actually built these piers, steel piers that go all the way up through. And so all we have to do is just set the cool ship on it, because when you got we've got space for 2 other horizontal tanks that we've already got the glycol and everything plumbed and ready to go for that forward-thinking.
Our cellar expansion now, which will double our. Of
course, we're in the benefit of Wisconsin. And so was it a week ago? We were battling minus 20 and our glycol froze.
That's the other problem you have. It's too cold.
We had to tint our glycol.
I like how he says we. I did nothing. He was up on the roof at minus 20.
I had to tint them and put a space heater under the tent. Yeah. It's straight up Wisconsin.
But it was minus 40 wind chill, I think, up there.
It's rough.
Well, that's like I was saying, though, the beauty of this industry is the fact that you can reach out to other people in the industry that have gone through it, small or large, and that's amazing. There's this moment when we had put the silos in, and then we have 2 50,000-pound malt silos at the Windsor Brewery, and I woke up at 4 a.m. and had this thought, oh crap, I think we set them the wrong way. And I went in on Sunday morning, and I would often go in on Sunday and meet with a couple of the job site superintendents. And that was the one day that nobody was there, but it was a great day to walk through and see things. And sure enough, not only did we set them wrong, but the in-bed plates were in the wrong place. So the way that the auger line was supposed to work wasn't going to work, and we were going to have to rip up. It ended up being $48,000 worth of concrete and labor. And anyways, I literally just randomly, Ken happens to call me and says, hey, how's it going? I'm like, well, let me tell you, I cried on his shoulder for half an hour. And then he's like, the number of times that I've, that we've screwed up, did this, that. He's probably just BSing me. It's probably never happened. But we always talk about it was very helpful. And that, these things do happen. And when you are spending multiples of millions of dollars, mistakes are going to happen, and you're just going to have to roll with the punches. But yeah, so
we always talk about, Allison and I, about commiserating with local brewery owners of our scale. Very different scale, but still, you need your peer group to commiserate.
Because there's only so many ways you can say, like, owning a brewery. It's like it's really about cleaning toilets and working on cash flow. It's not. I mean, the beer is
plumbing,
just a bonus.
Welding.
Plumbing,
well,
welding.
then you throw in the restaurant aspect too, which is the restaurant business is hard, and we've got two, and we love it for the.
You didn't learn the first time, so
we love it for that direct connection to the customer and getting feedback, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but that difficulty of the restaurant industry, it's true, what they say.
We actually, so we were strongly advised against opening a restaurant. So we actually aren't. We are just a brewery.
Just a brewery. Okay.
We tried and are still trying the food truck endeavor. We do have, so we're in the downtown space.
Right. Which remind you, it was -40 wind chill last week. So the food truck industry has its seasons.
It warmed up to, I think it's only 20 outside now. And the pepper packed downstairs. But it's carrying food. We got food trucks. We hope we do. But now it's a challenge because people demand food. And so now we're trying to figure out how can we, in our ship in a bottle, build a small pizza oven or something.
Yeah. Well, pizza's a good one to do because it's, you can do it easily, thin crust, doesn't overfill them, still sell beer, and it's pretty good profitability.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Before we sat down, we weren't intending to make this a question, but it became one. Someone mentioned, or maybe they did mean to, they said, ask Vinnie what his death row beer flight would be. Death row beer flight is now our new thing.
They asked me about it. They're like, if you were convicted of a crime that you clearly did not commit and you were about to be executed for, what 4 beers would you have in your beer flight?
We used to do the Mount Rushmore thing, and maybe we still will, but brewers get a little uncomfortable with that. Like, they don't want to leave off names.
Right.
So, anyway.
So four beers is my quota here. I would go.
Sure. It's a beer. You have wait. You're at least at your original location. How many is in a flight?
Like 18.
Our
flight.
We're going industry standard. 4 beers.
Our flight is legendary. At some point, it was in the top 5 photographed food items on Instagram. It was in there with like voodoo donuts from Portland, Oregon. I was like, "What? This is crazy." 4 beers. I would go.
18 beers on a plate. It's crazy. So.
Boy, probably Schönraum Pilsner from Germany, Schönraumer Brewery, Pilsner. Going with probably Orval. I'm going to go with 3. I'm going to go with like multiple Belgian beers here. I'm a huge Belgian beer fan. Duvel.
Yes.
And I'd probably have to throw in one IPA, and I would go for North Park Brewing Hop Fu. So
nice.
But honorable mention would go to Taurus Bulba from Duranca, or from De La Seine, and then XX Bitter from Duranca in Belgium are both 2 of my favorite beers as well. I love Belgian beer, and we still brew as many as we can. But that's my favorite place to go drink beer is in Belgium. It's such a great beer culture.
I have yet to go. We will make it there soon.
Yeah.
Check out that humility.
Yeah, he didn't have any of his own.
None of his own. I love it.
Drinking 2 of his own.
And the reason I like Orval or like a Brett finished beer like Orval is that it's constantly changing. Yeah. So you have this evolutionary beer. That's like if you're on a desert island. If you're on death row, well, then I guess it's till you get whacked. But
that's true. But if it's deserted island, you need to replenish it in some way. So there's not quite deserted, I guess.
Yeah, well, at least with Orval, then you have the yeast and the Belgian beer.
I was going to say, I was just thinking that brewery. There we go. We thought this out.
Is that how you're going to build brewery number 3?
when you're in Belgium, the glassware is a big part of it, but like Duvel is a completely different beer. It is so hoppy and snappy and bitter, and it is just an absolute beautiful beer. And Westmalle Triple there is just so yeast driven and focused, and they're wonderful beers. Those beers don't sell near like they used to here in the States, whether they're the true Belgian beers or if you're making inspired beers from Belgium like we do, but we still won't give up on them, where we have those on the board all the time.
I am so thirsty now. Those are classic. Yeah. I regret only one thing about this interview is that's not having an Orval in front of me before we started it. But I knew it was going to come up. Yes, I was going to say congrats on everything.
Well, thanks.
Your career in the Windsor facility and what you've done for the entire industry. You are one of the most communicative, and I've emailed you, and I don't wait long for that response, and it seems like you do that with everybody.
Well, we try, and there's a lot of people helped us in our early years, and we're firm believers that a high tide floats all boats, and that you need to get back, and that we're kind of one big team in the craft beer industry. I mean, we're still a tiny amount of the beer sales compared to all the bigger industrial breweries, so I'm pretty sure that helping someone else in a different part of the country isn't going to affect us at all, and it just makes for better beer.
Well, say hey to Natalie, and I may take you up on the in-kind thing. We'll see how that works out.
Absolutely. Would love to.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, that'll conclude this episode of Respecting the Beer. The producer of Respecting the Beer is David Kelso. Without David, there would be no show. Please remember to join the Facebook group to get updates between the episodes and to join the Patreon page where you can get invites to special events and access to special beers. Links to both of these are in the show notes. And until next time, please remember to respect the beer.